Well, this week, the European regulators recommended approval for the world's first malaria vaccine. The World Health Organization will be the next body to evaluate its use. It will have to consider some major issues. It's only about 30% effective. Its protection fades over time, and it requires 4 doses over 18 months. Joining us now is Dr. Joel Selanikio. He is the CEO of Magpi, which develops and promotes new technologies for health and international development. Dr. Selanikio, anything that helps to eradicate malaria has to be a good thing. What are the drawbacks of this?
Well, I think the main benefit of this is the fact, it is a real scientific achievement that we're even talking about getting real field data on the use of a malaria vaccine. We've never had any vaccine reach this stage, the stage of actual going out to phase 4 testing in a real world scenario. So this is a real cause for celebration.
And like 30 years they've been working on this.
Yeah, for at least 30 years they've been working on it. And it's got Gates funding, the US Army was involved, lots of different organizations have helped to bring it to this stage. But as you pointed out, there's 4 doses of vaccine, so there are many, many different issues that have to be addressed, and they're only going to be addressed by more data, and we're only going to get more data by putting this vaccine in the field. So what WHO's got to do is decide, well, I think at this point all indications are that the vaccine's safe. So we're not worried about harming children by giving them this vaccine. The question is, what's the cost effectiveness? What's the effectiveness in a real world situation? How's it going to affect the use of other things? Well, people think, well, my kids got vaccinated against malaria, so I don't have to use a insecticide-treated bed net, which might prevent them from getting bitten more, right? Obviously, if the vaccine is only in ideal circumstances, let's say 25 to 30% effective, discouraging people from using bed nets, if in fact that happens, would be a bad thing.
So they're saying the age is 6 weeks to 17 months, is that correct, that
right.
it would be effective in?
Right.
What's the downside? I mean, anything is better than nothing, one would think.
Well, here, when you add an additional vaccine to, let's say to the vaccine schedule, right? I'm a pediatrician at Georgetown. Well, you add an additional vaccine, you have to explain to parents why it's happening, but the fact is you already have kids coming in at least once a year, right? Younger kids come in much more frequently, kids in their first year of life. So we can already reach that audience. It is much, much more difficult. Kids in sub-Saharan Africa, by and large, don't go to a pediatrician to get their vaccinations or to a health clinic. They have to have nationwide campaigns where they try and get kids, the majority of kids, who have no access to doctors and no access to nurses. So it is an enormous production, and it's been dramatically successful in reducing the rate of deaths from, for example, measles. But saying, okay, we might need to do another national vaccination day in these places, that's an enormous task to say that you want to do that. So of course, before you were going to commit the resources to add an additional national level activity like that, it's going to cost millions of dollars. You want to have data on exactly what are we gaining by doing this.
Would it take funding away from, for instance, the bed nets?
Well, I think people are worried about that, but they're also worried, as I said, about people's kind of attitude about using these things, that it'll give people a false sense of security. But all this is speculation at this point. In science, of course, there's lots of plausible things, like maybe parents will stop using bed nets if their kids are vaccinated against malaria, but there's a big difference between plausible and true. What we have to find out now, we've got all sorts of theories about how this will behave in a real-world circumstance. And it's amazing that we can even move to the next stage, but we have to move to the next stage, which is actually answering these questions with empirical data. And
so what's the next step now?
Well, the next step is for WHO. WHO's got to do a few things before countries will be able to think about implementing this and will be able to get the funding that they need to implement it. So WHO is trying to make these decisions. There's a couple expert committees there, and every expectation is that they'll have their decision so that at least some countries can move forward with this, certainly by the end of the year, but I think probably by the fall.
All righty. Dr. Joel Selanikio, we appreciate your time, your insight.
Thanks.